All right, ready?
Ready.
All right. So, ladies, this episode tonight is for you. By popular demand, we're going to talk about myths of the modern man and the role of a man in a family as a husband, as a father, as a provider, and a protector. And also, we're going to discuss why the modern man, for the most part, you see out there, guys don't want to work. They're lazy, they have no discipline, they're fat, they have no purpose in life, they live for pleasure only, which in turn is a form of self-sabotage.
Yeah.
They're not leading from the front. And before we kick off tonight's episode, Chance is the married guy, not me. I'm divorced twice. So I will say this. After 2 years of improving myself, studying, getting back into church, if God allows me the opportunity to be married again, I will be all in and take it 100% serious. My last 2 marriages, I was not serious. I didn't lead from the front, and I was not a good husband. Tried my best to be a good dad, but I was not the best husband. So before Chance kicks off with what a good husband's going to be, I'm going to read you guys some scripture tonight from the book of Ephesians. So this is Paul talking to the church in Ephesians, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna read Ephesians chapter 5, verses 22 through 28, and this is gonna ruffle some feathers. So I want you guys just to sit tight and hang in there with me. This is old school. This is King James Bible, so y'all just relax. This isn't the progressive prosperity gospel Bible that says you're gonna have $1 million if you snap your fingers. All right, so here we go. This is about marriage, Christ, and the church. You ready to rock?
Ready.
All right, here we go. Starting in verse 22, wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord, for the husband is the head of the wife, as also Christ is the head of the church, and he is the Savior of the body. Therefore, just as the church is subject to Christ, so let the wives be to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for her, that he might sanctify and cleanse her with the washing of water by the word, that he might present her to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that she should be holy and without blemish. So husbands, guys, listen up. Husbands ought to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. So the takeaway from that for me is, guys, if you don't love yourself, you can't expect anybody else to love you. What are your thoughts there, brother?
Yeah, so a lot to unpack already. Like, I think it's important. Let's do this. Let's break down what society and normal looks like for men right now, and then juxtapose that with some of the content in here, because it goes on and on. And I think it's important. So like you said, like guys out there today, they're lazy, they're self-entitled, they're self-gratifying, they're fat. Like what I see in society and what society deems as normal for men, quote unquote men, is really like emotional retardation. And I don't mean that in like a derogatory term. I mean like slow emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
It's a super, like you got a bunch of guys out there with the maturity, emotional immaturity of like 15 and 60-year-old boys.
Yeah.
And this is where you get into, like it says, love your wife as you love your own self.
Mm-hmm.
You should love your wife as you love yourself. Yes, you cannot love somebody else fully until you do love yourself. But the emotional intelligence of guys out there, for the most part, in our society, they can't even fathom what loving yourself looks like.
Yeah.
And I know I've been in that stage of my life before. Thank God you grow out of it. You should, right? Like that's part of growing up is casting aside those childish things.
Mm-hmm.
But like the quick temper, the crazy irrational thought processes, the guys that punch holes in walls, drink Monster, play video games all night, like You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not so much of that's what society would look as like, oh, just guys being guys,
Yeah, boys being boys.
boys being boys.
Yeah.
But those are not signs of an emotionally intelligent man. And so you can't fully love yourself. You definitely can't fully love somebody else, even if you think you do,
Yeah.
if you're stunted emotionally to start with.
Well, and I think the breakdown of our society, and Paul says it here in Ephesians, if you don't live your life for Christ, you're not going to treat your wife as Christ treated the church. So if I'm living for myself, even if I'm married with kids, and like you just described, the fortitude, if I'm immature and I get mad, punch a hole in the wall, or come home from work and yell at the wife, yell at the kids. And this isn't even married guys. I mean, it could be you live with your girlfriend or whatever. I mean, you know, if you're not living for Christ, and this is going to piss some people off, and I hope it does, get mad at us, because I want you to get mad. If you're not living for Christ, your whole world's going to be just disarray and chaos.
Yeah, there's a good argument that's made by atheists and even some friends of mine that make the argument, and it says basically, if you need a book, an ancient book at that, to give you a moral compass, then you're just not a good person anyways. Mm-hmm. But I think that morality in general is not inherent. I don't think that you can leave something like morality to the world, because morality changes based on the period that you live in. Whereas the Bible lays out a morality that's start to finish, you know, pre-time, post-time. Mm-hmm. It's forever, it's eternal. The morality, so I'm not basing my whole life on a morality that is the Bible, but it is a living example of how did Christ love the church? Well, that's a good question. How did Christ love the church? You know, he healed his people, he led his people, he admonished them when they were wrong, but he did it lovingly. Mm-hmm. Nobody walked away from Jesus like, you know, of his disciples, and it was his early church. Nobody walked away like, man, forget this dude. Like, he told them the truth, right? Whether it hurt or not. And he did it in such a loving way that they kept following. Yeah. And not only that, but spreading the word up to and including their death. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not like, to go back to that argument, like we don't need an ancient document to tell us what's moral or not. I think that what it is a living example of what that looks like to live in society of any age. But the challenge is there, though, that men across the board, whether you're Christian, whether you're not, have a hard time with this right here. Yeah. And women do too. That first line, and I always laugh whenever they read it at church, because you got all the women like, submit to your husband, and they're like, mm-mm. Yeah, because they think it's a dirty word. Yeah, like the man's above her. And it's truly like, if you think about it, and it goes on, and it actually says, men, submit to your wives. Yeah. All the way back in Genesis 12:21, I think it says, like, a very clear instruction to early man: listen to your wife. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's not a one-sided street. And I think that people take this and they flip-flop it, which again goes back to that emotional intelligence. They flip-flop it and say, I'm in charge. I'm the master of the house. Right. I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. Where the reality is, if you were following this, you would be humbled by the fact that, gosh, I'm the head of the household. Well, that's a humbling thing, and that's an honor. Yeah. But it should be humbling, because that's a lot of weight and responsibility to hold. And I think too, like the word submit, wife, submit to your husband, I think you'd also interpret it as support your husband. Absolutely. And if the man is treating his wife with respect, and he's loving her, he's protecting her, he's providing, he's going to get that support. Absolutely. And it's not a keeping score type thing, but it's a mutual respect. I mean, you know, if I sat here and just dog cussed you and said, man, all this, you're not going to want to. And then said, hey, by the way, can you come over tomorrow and help me hang the blind? Yeah. No, I'm not. So, well, no, I think that's the point, though. And I think so here's context that everybody misses in the Bible in general. I see it a lot. I won't say everybody. I see it a lot that people miss context in the Bible. The context of what's written here is that the people he was talking to knew all of the Old Testament, like front to back, had a lot of it memorized.
Yeah.
All those laws of Moses, a lot of those pertain to how to treat each other in relationships.
Right.
And some of the language is a little dark sometimes. It's difficult for us, however many thousand years later, to look at the laws back then and be like, good Lord. But that's because we do a bad job of interpreting some of the language that they used.
Yeah.
But really, those laws were in place, and it was implied because you knew how tradition was in Jewish culture going all the way back. Like you had this kind of groundwork of like, yeah, men, you should be really cautious and gracious to your wives. You should treat them like it says here again. Paul reiterates that, like a fragile vessel.
Yeah.
You don't lord over a fragile vessel. You keep it safe. Right. Like you treat it like it could break.
Yeah.
Because it can.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it comes down to, like, if you understand the fact that it's not us, he's not saying to lord over your household and be a terrorist. Wives respectfully submit, because also the men submit first. As the head of the household, we're the first to submit to the wives, and we're the first to say, I'm sorry. We're the first to say, ooh, I'm not doing this good.
I think
the course.
For the men, though, it's more the submit piece could be also sacrifice, because the
1,000%.
the man's role is to provide. So therefore, he might have to give up a morning workout to stay home with the kids, or to whatever, get something done around the house. So I think he's kind of and I want to pick your brain a little bit because you're married.
Yeah.
So like, how long have you and Stephanie been married?
11 years.
11 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, how would you define the leadership role of a husband in a Christian marriage? Like, how would you define that?
So a lot of people talk about servant leadership, and they talk about it so much that it gets like kind of whitewashed. And it just becomes a term that people use, but literally servant leadership.
Okay.
And so if I'm going to lead my house, because I used to struggle with this early on, is like, how do I lead a household?
Yeah.
How do I lead my wife? And if you've met my wife, how do you lead her anywhere? You know what I mean? She's outspoken. She will defend anybody that she loves to the ends of the earth. She will start problems sometimes that don't need to be started. Like,
but she's looking out for both.
She's wild.
She had some pretty good advice.
Oh, she totally does.
Yeah.
She's wild.
Thank you, Stephanie.
So how do you lead someone who's fiercely independent, wild? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so what I came to learn over time was that my example number one, if I'm leading by an example of like laziness or apathy, that's not a good tone to set for the household. If I'm not telling truth in things, if there's confusion about, like we talked even way back then about the Bible, and there was areas of the Bible where she was confused, or like I didn't agree at all. So it's my job to say, let's be cautious on that one. This is what I think. And here's why, too. It's in here, and this is how it's written. She'd say, oh, I've never heard it like that before.
So you're discipling.
So you're discipling your wife. And you're also, but like that also means that you've got the responsibility to not be telling her wrong either.
Right.
I think men answer for all that. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Right.
So again, it comes back to, but it's always like, how can I serve my wife? Because if the Bible calls us to die to yourself, die to yourself.
Yeah.
So how do I do that? Like, is it like, I'll give you a good example of the opposite end of the spectrum. A guy I know that I went to church with for a long time will not pick up clothes off the floor if they're on the floor, will not touch laundry, will not do a dish, will not cook dinner, will not serve guests, will not. If you think of anything like household related, chore-wise, will not do it.
Okay.
That is a woman's job.
Huh.
Now, I'll let him keep his household the way he wants to. It's not biblical.
No.
It's not biblical in the slightest. And how you define your role within your marriage between you and your wife, I'll say this though, if you want a really happy wife and one that both loves, respects, and wants to pour into you as well, you lead by serving.
Yeah.
What can I do to help you?
Right.
Like if it's doing dishes, dude, I'll do dishes all day long. That's easy. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
So the way you're describing this guy, to me, it sounds like, and a lot of men do this, they are married, but their spouse is almost like their mom. And I'm going to read this real fast. So this is still in Ephesians, and this is my eyes are going bad, so I'm just going to read. It says, for this reason, we're still in chapter 5. I can see that. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. This doesn't say you get married and your wife becomes your new mommy.
No.
You're one flesh. You're, and I always say this with Shelly.
Yeah.
Shelly. So you're, so you're a team, you're a partnership. There's no, hey, I'm above you because I'm the dude, and it's not, hey, I'm above you because I'm picking up all your stuff off the ground and I'm cooking your dinner. You're a team, but you have different roles. So I have maybe, and I'm not married, but let's say, you know, with you and Stephanie, you've got roles over here, and then you work together to accomplish one mission. And I think that's where, and I'm free to open about, you know, my role in the old days as a husband. And I don't want to sit here and preach at you guys when I've made my fair share of mistakes. But yeah, I think you see it as a unit. You're a team, and you're a united front against a world that's trying to destroy you. That's how I see it.
I see it like that too. And I think that there's talents that individuals, you got two individuals who come together in a relationship, and that relationship is going to evolve over a long time.
Yeah.
So those roles may look different from day 1 to day 3,000.
Right.
But like everybody comes to it with their individual talents and their individual ideas on how this should work.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you've talked about some of those before you get married.
Yeah. Well, and right now, you know, the divorce rate is 70% on the first marriage, 90% for the second.
That's crazy.
But think about it. Our society hates marriage, and it hates the family unit, because what are they doing? They're pushing the dude out of the picture.
Yeah.
And you can spin it another way and say that's Satan's ultimate goal, is to remove the father in the picture, because it's our job to disciple, to lead, to protect, to provide. And I'm not trying to jump over you, but I think that's what our society glamorizes. You know, get rid of the man. Women, you don't need a man, because you're going to get all this attention from Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You're going to get compliments galore. You don't need some dude who's living off of you and not basically you can live without him. You don't need him.
Yeah, and I think it's harsh. Like we've got a weird beginning in the 60s when the feminism movement like really kind of kicked into high overdrive all the way through the 70s, and like and I'm a feminist, and in fact I will always make this argument: God is a feminist. God loves women, and particularly strong, righteous women.
Yeah.
And it happens over and over again, particularly in the Old Testament, but there's some good New Testament examples of strong women in the Bible. God loves them.
Yeah.
I was talking to a rabbi in New York, and he says,
how did you talk?
He was, you know, we were talking about God and women.
Okay.
Sounds
like a country song.
Yeah, sitting with a rabbi. But he was talking about, he's like, you know, when I want to talk to God, I got to call collect. My wife, she's got a direct line. It's like the red phone the president uses. Just pick it right up and talk.
Yeah.
And so, like, but I think there's a lot of truth in that. God adores a strong, righteous woman. Men are a little bit more annoying.
Well, I think it's man's responsibility for the state of the world right now.
Yeah,
we have not stepped up, so it's forced women to fill a role that we're supposed to fill.
Well, how many? And I know a lot of single moms out there, and the one thing they always say is, "I've got to be mom and dad." Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of times where even married couples, I watch people watch a lot in general, but like I'll watch and moms are fulfilling this role of the father figure in teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Take my kid to Boy Scouts several years ago. I was the only dad at Boy Scouts with the kids.
That's sad.
The only
That's
one.
sad.
It was all moms.
Really?
All moms.
Wow.
You know, school outings and things like this where obviously dads are more prone to be working during the daytime, but like they would do things like Father's Day out at school or whatever, do programs with the dads. A fraction of dad showing up. And it's like, but those are those examples of how do you lead a family? You've got to pull away from the distractions out there. But like,
what's happened too is a lot of women, from my experience, are anti-marriage now because their marriage fell apart because the husband wasn't fulfilling that role. So now they're like, man, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't need a husband because I got this figured out. And back to your point about even with the Boy Scouts, they're filling those roles. I don't agree with that because the guy needs to step up, and especially with a Boy Scout thing. I mean,
come on, man.
You know,
Well, and then you wonder. So Boy Scouts now allows girls in.
Yeah, our troops.
It's Scouts of America.
Yeah, our troops.
Well, obviously, because there's no. I mean, it used to be like dads and boys going out and like you'd start a fire, you learn how to carve something. You do kind of guy stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it perpetuates the cycle of emotionally repressed men that stay boys emotionally. And you just cannot lead like that.
No.
And I made fun of video games earlier. I've got a good friend who's a great father and a great husband, and he plays video games every once in a while recreationally. So I'm not saying that.
I know what you mean.
When it's every night and you're vegging out,
when you're playing
your headphones on,
doing something else.
Come on, dude! Like, get real, and grow up.
Well, and I thought of this today when I was working out. I'm an outlier because I like to be different, and music, the way I dress. I mean, I don't want to fit in with everybody. And I was thinking about this today. I'm 45 years old, and I would dare to say where we live, the majority of guys in their 40s are listening to pop music. They're dressing like they're in their 20s.
Yeah.
They don't go to the gym. Not that working out's everything, but I think it's important.
Yep.
That's how you lead by example. They don't take care of themselves. They're on a bunch of medications because they don't eat right. They eat whatever they want. They're just turds, man.
Yeah.
I see it like just going out to the mall or to church or wherever. And I know y'all are gonna think it's harsh, but I'm kicking the real deal, man. Like these dudes are too busy getting off to Bruno Mars, prancing around on a stage, and they're a grown ass man.
Well, no, so
like be a man, dude.
No, it's a great point, and I'll swing it back around. I was talking to a mentor of mine that I grew up with, and I still talk to him all the time now. And we were talking about my kids, and you know, he said the one reason, he said that I didn't have any kids. And I said, yeah, why, you know, I know, why is that, you know?
Yeah.
And he said, because I don't think that I would set the right example for how to be as a man.
Really?
And I'm like, dude, if you're saying that, then you'd be a great example.
But I never even thought of that when I had kids.
Me neither. But that's such a good, like, I mean, it's a thought process. As my kids started growing and getting older, I started thinking about that more and more and more of like, man, when I see something in them that I don't like, if it's a reflection of me and a part of me I don't like, I'm like, what a foul up. And so I'll address it with them and I'll be like, I know I'm like that.
Right.
And I know you got that directly from me, but like you and I both now, we're in this together. We got to get rid of that because that sucks.
Yeah.
And like, you just got to be honest with them. But again, that goes back to, are you emotionally competent enough to say, ooh, I fouled up on that and I need to fix this?
It's accountability. Man.
It's accountability. But who are you accountable to if not yourself? You're accountable to God, but you can ignore the admonishment of God, you know? Like people, it's your conscience. Like people ignore that all the time. You know something's not right and you do it. you ignore it, and you ignore it long enough, and he's like, all right,
that's true.
Fine.
Yeah, that's true.
Be stuck.
Well, maybe it ties more into humility and saying, hey, I know I need to do better in this area and I need to do more.
Yes.
But
like when it comes to husband and wives, like that's what our task is, to constantly be climbing that rung by rung, that ladder of being better and better and better, and setting ourselves up to not only so our wives have somebody to respect, because you look around at some of these guys and you listen to their wives talking to them and you're like, of course they don't respect you.
Yeah, it's like a Homer Simpson analogy.
Yes. Exactly.
He's just an idiot.
And here's the thing, I've known some really good men that aren't the brightest.
Yeah.
And they're really good men in the church, and they had great families and like led honest, really good lives that just weren't very bright.
Yeah.
But like we laugh at and idolize a lot of TV characters, and like think of any sitcom. What's the husband?
He's
a dork.
Yeah,
and
he's stupid. He doesn't do anything. He's lazy.
Watches sports.
The mom takes care of everybody.
That's all he does.
Yeah.
The mom's always doing everything, running everywhere.
Yeah.
And the dad's like off in la la land.
Yeah.
And we laugh and we laugh and we laugh. And then you look at society and you're like, it's not that funny.
Well, it's by design.
Yeah.
It's totally by
design.
So speaking of the man, I want to ask, so I want to pick your brain on this too. So you're 35?
36.
36. Okay, so you're about 10 years younger than me. So when we're both independent, well, we own our own businesses, so we obviously work. We're doing the podcast. So within the last, say, year and a half, I've met at least 3 people that are older than me that were all married, got divorced. These women all were the breadwinners.
Yeah.
They were the corporate, or still some of them still are corporate America. They're earning the money, but they're also taking care of their children, married these men that never had a real job, never had a paycheck, never had a pension, benefits, nothing, man. Just living off the woman and not really helping with the kids. My generation, I didn't really see that. I don't really know any. I know one guy, he's a little bit older than me. We're really good friends. And he would kind of fall into that category. So from a 36-year-old perspective, what have you seen much of that with your generation?
I didn't see it growing up. I was also raised in West Texas, where guys weren't like that. Guys were pretty hard. And they went on the other side of the pendulum.
One of these individuals,
they were rough.
I won't name names, but he's like, I guess he's a cowboy, but he's never had a job.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I never met him.
That's where you're going with that.
No, but it was all like, it was an oil town. So it was like all the guys worked in the oil field or supported the oil field.
Yeah.
And they were hard. And I won't say that's like, I won't idealize that, because a majority of the guys I knew growing up, the dads, were on the other side of that pendulum.
Okay.
Like, they worked really hard, but they were horrible and mean and semi-abusive.
And that's more what I knew. You work all day and you come home and you're like, you're not dealing with anything. Yeah, you're like, where's my dinner?
Exactly. Which I don't also think is right. But like,
it's not.
But I didn't see that. What I started seeing that is whenever I was in college age years and moved to a bigger city in Texas. And I met more and more and more of these guys, and it's like, what do you do? I'm a stay-at-home dad.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you like? Okay, so that's cool. So like, but what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, because you can be I'm not saying that though. Like, if your wife I got a good friend.
I was going to say
his wife is a lawyer, extremely successful.
Yeah.
He was successful as well, but he traveled all the time. So his wife's like, you just like stay home and take care of stuff here, and I'll do this.
And there's a difference if you're stepping up and you're doing the shopping and
that's it.
I mean, if you're helping,
he does.
But if you're sitting on your ass, not doing a damn thing.
And also, I'll say this: he's remodeling the house.
That's a whole different.
Like,
he's still providing.
He's providing a home.
Right.
So I don't care if you think that's good, traditional, bad, whatever, but he's still providing.
Yeah.
But the guys that just loaf around and like can't keep it together.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on like, what do you think creates that? Why? Because that to me, that's like foreign.
Well, I think you and I were both part of a generation coming up where it was oh man, what's the Fight Club? The book Fight Club, or the
movie,
movie too?
right,
I think they referenced it in the movie as
I
well.
was in college when that came out.
But that when that movie, like, it was quoted obviously from the book too, but he says we're a generation of men raised by women.
Yeah.
And so, absent of, and you saw a lot of abusive or tyrannical dads growing up, I certainly did. When you fail to see an example of like what is a good, solid
Yeah.
leader in a
Right.
home
That makes
look like,
sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
then what you do is you start swinging the pendulum of
Yeah.
like both extremes,
Right.
and where you're going to land in that. And I think what's important to come back to is where do you find that leadership? Well, it says love them like Jesus loved the church. You can come from a broken home
Yeah.
and an ugly home,
Right.
and look at the, okay, well, how did Jesus love the church? You start asking questions and you start immersing yourself in that. That's all the direction you need.
Yeah.
And it's helped me out. I didn't grow up in the most stable of home environments. And my home, and I tell the kids this sometimes, or I remind them of this, like, y'all have got it pretty good, you know?
Yeah.
This is pretty as close to normal as I can get with my personality.
Right. It's just, to me, that it's just interesting that like a man would refuse to work, and then on the other side of that, I have a friend, and she does really well. She's younger, a little bit younger than me. Her husband has a really good job, but he is insecure about the amount of money she makes because she makes more money than he does. And I know for me personally, that wouldn't bother me.
No.
You know, it wouldn't bother me, but I guess for some men, they feel inferior.
Emasculated.
Yeah, inferior because the wife makes more money. So it's almost like guys now are either not providing, not really working, or they're making less, so they feel inferior. And I guess it goes back to your point when we started about the emotional maturity. You know,
Yeah, I mean, and it's harsh words for me. Let's take it with a grain of salt. Anybody listening?
but men need to hear this, though. They need to hear it.
But grow up.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot be the things that offend me, or that you can say that would I'd be like taken aback by, has nothing to do. Like, if my wife came home tomorrow and made twice as much money as me, I would be ecstatic.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because you're supportive.
Well, and beyond that, like, my value as a husband is not tied to my wallet.
Right.
And
That's a good way to put it.
And you know this, dude, because you own a business. Sometimes business is good, sometimes business is bad.
Yeah.
And when it's bad, do you lose value as a man?
No.
No, you're the same man who's running that company, good, bad, or indifferent. If you get laid off from a job and you had nothing to do with that layoff, are you less valuable as a man? That's the time where you step up and you say, what else can I do?
Right. Yeah.
And you appreciate, like, this is, to me, it's a grow up moment. You got to grow up.
Yeah.
Don't be hurt because, and if your masculinity is fragile to be broken by dollars and cents, you need to focus on your masculinity a little bit more.
Well, I think you have to define what masculinity really is, too.
I'll show you.
This is a G-rated show, sir.
No, but like, I mean, yeah, it's a good point. What is masculinity?
Yeah.
And is it a spectrum, and what does that include? I don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack in that, but to me, masculinity is just what we've been talking about. Can you take leadership of a household?
Mm-hmm.
Can you show everybody in that household the value that's inherent in them? And can you bring more of that value out?
Yeah.
If you can, then you're pretty masculine to me. And you and I have talked about this before. I know some really good men that are super soft. They're very gentle. They're very soft spoken. They're not like, you wouldn't look at these guys and be like, that's a manly man.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they care for, love, cherish, and lead their family makes them men that I would follow.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just as easily as I would follow somebody who's like you or any of these guys out there that are like, you know, buff and forward and like obviously charismatic and all that stuff. It all comes down to, like, can you make a silver spoon out of a plastic spoon?
That's a good analogy.
You know, do you produce more than you consume? That's masculine.
Are you an asset or a liability?
Are you an asset or a liability?
For our society right now, I think a lot of husbands need to throw a lot of men in that category or liabilities.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Because they
not only to their family but to society
to themselves.
Yeah,
they're complacent, and like I said at the beginning, I mean, they're lazy. They're living for pleasure, not purpose.
Yeah, look, and guys are horrible at falling into pleasure cycles.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like we are addicted to pleasure.
Yeah,
I think we're made that way. We're visual.
Yeah,
we're like physical.
Right.
So there's a lot of temptation out there in the world. Video games.
Yeah.
Anything to get the quick high, the quick buzz, the quick fun. That's all out there. But yeah, you gotta, like I said, you gotta grow up, dude. Like when you're done being a boy.
And the thing is, man, I think men can get complacent, and to my knowledge, once a woman loses respect for you, you're done, man. There's no coming back from that.
Yeah, I think it's hard. Like, and I know Stephanie and I have been married long enough that I can sense when I'm on a bad path, and her maybe not full on respect level, but we'll just use that for now. So I can tell when her respect for me is waning. Stephanie's like a sweet Southern belle, and like I said, wild and outspoken, but like she's very, very much a Southern woman. And so she wants to feed me in the morning. She wants to do my laundry. She wants to get me set up and ready for the next. That's like, these are things that give her
that's cool.
pleasure to do.
Yeah.
But she's just very traditional,
old
school like that. Right, dude? But like, I can sense things taking a slip when I'm like, man, I'm hungry.
Dude.
And there's no breakfast to be found.
My ex-wife would have made me a damn sandwich.
But like you've got to be in tune. But again, it all comes back to emotional maturity. Are you emotionally mature enough to sense what's going on in your significant other, to see where you fall in her spectrum of attention and worthiness?
Yeah.
And like you're gonna have moments, and
marriage is not going to be easy.
No, and it's not a straight line.
No, it's not.
Like you're gonna have moments where you're like, she did not like me that month, or she did not like me that year. But like, the point is to recognize those things and to be good about like, hey, I need to address whatever's going on. And sometimes it's you, sometimes it's her, sometimes it's both of you. But you got to be, again, that's like part of that leadership. Like, how do you lead a household? Are you in tune enough to even notice what's going on in your
Right. Well, and you got to work on yourself. You got to work on your emotional health to be able to be there moments like you're talking about, to pick up on things and make sure, hey, do I need to recalibrate and maybe open my mind towards something that I don't want to do, but I need to sacrifice for the greater good.
Yeah, well, sacrifice is a great word, and again, it comes back to like men are fixers and doers, and like the one complaint that all women I've ever talked to have is like they want to just talk to their husband.
Yeah.
And their husband's sitting there giving them solutions.
Trying to fix the problem.
And fix it.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, what if you just said this? Well, don't think that. That's dumb.
Just let it talk.
You just like, at a certain point, they're like, I don't want to talk about this with you. I'm trying to fix my own.
And it's hard. It's hard as a guy to not try.
It's super hard.
I mean, it's really tough because if you care about them, you're trying to like, what can we do?
Trying to fix this for you.
Yeah.
But again, it's that like, and I struggle with that. That's probably my worst is like, I want to fix all the problems.
Yeah.
And I don't want to just listen to you.
Well, you're trying to protect them.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Jordan Peterson defined marriage as sacrifice.
It is sacrifice.
That's how he defines it. That's a
one word. It is. It's all sacrifice for men in particular. And especially, again, coming back to today's society where men are self-indulgent pigs, sacrifice is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to think that I'm having a bad day. My wife comes home and she's having a bad day. Does my bad day outrank hers? Or am I going to put that away? And I'm going to listen to what she has to say. And then at the end of it, here's how it goes in my household, at least. She'll send some things up and go, what's wrong with you? Yeah. Like, I had a horrible day too.
Yeah.
And then you can laugh and say, man, we both had bad days. Okay.
Right.
You know? But but men have got to get into the role of sacrificial servant leadership in their home. And
Yeah.
it's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, if you're considering marriage, or maybe you're want to find
it. Don't.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, Paul wrote on this, and he wasn't married or had any kids. But if you're considering getting married, or you're maybe you had a couple marriages in the past, didn't work out. I think it's good. And you mentioned earlier about the atheist comment about why do you need an ancient book to have a moral compass. I think all men, the way we're wired, we need a guide.
Yeah.
I mean, how many dudes will go buy a new car and they're sitting there like looking at
they'll read the
manual, like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. So you need something to kind of give you some direction, because I don't know a lot of people that grew up and saw exactly what a man's supposed to be. I mean,
okay, so in our culture, especially Western culture, did away with thousands of years of tradition that made men into men.
Yeah.
So like you go to you go anywhere in the East, you go anywhere in the Middle East, you go anywhere in South America with these tribes and stuff that live out there.
Yeah.
Our Native American tribes here in North America, like every culture had a rite of passage to become a man. Yeah. And it was a moment where you said, I'm not a child anymore. Nope. And now I've got expectations and responsibilities. And then they had a whole tribe of men to look at as to how to live up to those expectations.
Models, yeah.
We did away with all of that and just said, be fiercely independent, go do your own thing. And for a long time, we carried on traditions as small communities or as families because you didn't want to upset your prior generation.
Yeah.
But we also lived in the same house or the same town.
You didn't want to make the parents disappointed.
That's 1,000%. So now all of that's gone, like in our culture anyways, that's all gone. But I do think, and I've had mentors for a long time that I get to pick and choose from which attributes to follow. But I think it's critical. Like we've got to, if you can't find a mentor, then you need to study this book. You need to get to where you want to be, and you need to become a mentor to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because there's a lack.
Well, and to throw this point in, we've mentioned this before on other episodes. If you're a leader in the church and you're married, lead by example.
Yeah.
Don't be the guy at church on Sunday that's an elder or a deacon that shakes everybody's hand and God is good, I love Jesus, and then go home and cuss your wife out because she didn't make your sandwich the right way, or
it was cold,
or your kids are not cleaning the room like you want them to, and you're screaming at them. Like, lead by example.
Yeah, and I think
that's a lot. That's a lot to put on somebody. But I really think if you're in a leadership role, especially in the church setting,
the rules for being a leader in the church are very cut and dry.
They are.
And they also say that they are judged twice as harshly.
Yeah, and I believe that, man, because
it shouldn't be a good gig. Is the problem.
No.
It should not be just something you get into because it's a good gig.
I know, and Paul talks about it. I forgot what book it's in. It might even be in Ephesians. He talks about the guidelines for an elder and a deacon.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to have your household in order. That doesn't mean rule with an iron fist.
No, but if I've seen elders that were made elders before their children are even teenagers.
Wow.
How do you know your house is in order?
Dude.
You don't. Of course your kids are sweet now.
Dude, this last church I was at that I left, man, they made this cat an elder. He didn't believe in the Holy Spirit or Satan. Like, really, bro? Like, that's
interesting.
That's
an interesting choice.
Made the Church of Christ close look bad. But it's like, come on, man.
My situation was a Church of Christ folks too.
Was it? Yeah.
I don't know, dude. It's one of those things where in society today, even Christian society, we don't value what it means to be a leader in any way, shape, or form. There's rules that lay out how you should be as an employer.
Yeah.
Pay your people really well and pay them fairly and on time.
Right.
That's all in the Bible. How many businessmen you know that will cheapskate people around or pay people late or, I'm not going to do bonuses this year.
Right.
No, that's not biblical. it's not biblical to, as a man, not look at that as a humbling, rightfully weighty thing to be a leader of a household. I think most guys shouldn't get married. I think in most cultures, men wouldn't even get married until they were like mid 30s to 40s. Because you took
experience.
Well, you had to get you got to be successful enough to take care of a family.
Yeah.
You have to have know yourself and be mature enough to lead a woman and children into the right path. You got to have you got to have all these things kind of in line. I got married young.
How old were you? Well, you've been married for 11 years?
Yeah, so 24, 25.
Okay. Yeah, I got married at 26, the first time.
But I also, Stephanie will tell you this, went away. I separated myself and really sat down and prayed and thought.
Good for you,
and is this something I'm willing to jump into today?
Yeah. Wow. Good for you.
Because if I'm not willing to today, a year's not going to help. Right. 2 years isn't going to help. It's just not right. And I'm not going to string her along during that time.
So when you were doing all that, did you, and I'm sure you probably did, I'm going to ask anyways, did you ask God to be in that relationship? Did you ask God for help and guidance?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
And
see, I never did that.
Probably in a much more naive way than I would today.
What do you mean by naive?
I was 24, 25, or 24 when I asked. I was 24 years old and a little bright-eyed and naive.
Yeah, but to be 24 and to ask that, when I was 24, I was freaking mad. Yeah, I don't think you give yourself enough credit, man.
I wasn't far from a mess, but I did ask, and I did remove myself, and I even told Stephanie I just need a couple days away.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big decision.
Because it's not fair to her.
Right.
And if I love and respect this person that I'm willing to ask to marry me,
yeah,
why would I do that? But I'm also kind of nuts. I'm kind of anal retentive. I'm a little neurotic, and so I wanted to make sure.
That's pretty cool, man. That's really respectable.
But I think if guys would do that, but here's the problem too. Okay, let's talk about dating for a minute. Not just marriage, but let's talk about just dating.
Yeah.
What's the point of dating?
Honestly, to get married.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it from a biblical standpoint.
If you look at it just from societal standpoint, the whole point of dating. Okay, well, modern society says you just go and have a good time.
Yeah, I do.
You guys can have fun together and do whatever. But does it mean something? If it didn't, then breakups wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you break up with somebody, it hurts. It sucks.
The whole time.
Because there was something moving in a direction.
Yeah.
If something wasn't aligned in that direction, you start splitting apart. That still hurts. You're tearing something apart.
Yeah.
So, but the point of dating is for a destination.
Yeah, I agree.
And whether you believe, I don't believe in marriage. I think two people should just be together. Blah, 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 blah. Fine. But you're going to tell me that when you're dating somebody for 30 years, you never got married, you're telling me that your lives weren't made into one?
Right.
One flesh?
Yeah.
Your life is one flesh.
Yeah.
You know all the same people. You go all the same places. You eat all the same. You know each other's habits. You sleep together. You do this together. That's marriage.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're married. Yeah. Married doesn't mean a document. Married means to take one thing from over here, this from over here, and to bring them together. People marry businesses all the time, adjacent businesses. You marry them together.
Yeah.
And it becomes one. So the whole point of dating, but here's the problem with, again, I think men should, and women should responsibly date to get to know how to be in a relationship.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I do think that. Now, do I think that should go on for 5 years? Some of these kids will be like, oh, yeah, we've been together since high school. We're 24 years old now. And high school sweethearts, still dating. Yeah. Okay, we'll do something. Shit or get off the pot. She's just
let's go play house.
People, you're playing house.
Yeah.
But I think, look, you're getting to know people. Let's go on a few dates, and then let's see if that's something.
If that's somebody you really
want to pursue.
Yeah.
And no, I can't see myself with that person.
Right.
So you go on a few more dates. I'm not going to saying sleep around.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm not saying go and make out with them all and spread herpes. but to date and get to know people, and because you learn from that process. And let me tell you something, man.
I just thought of that Seinfeld episode. I got gonorrhea from tracking. My boyfriend said I got gonorrhea from tracking.
Young men need to be brought up in such a way to understand that young women are wildly aggressive and very, very, very easy. Oh, dude, it happens like all the time. And you see this, and I hear about these stories, and like, it's hardly ever the young men who initiate things.
Wildly aggressive.
Wildly aggressive. Young men don't initiate. Young men are stupid.
Huh?
Dude.
Don't initiate.
Yeah.
Really?
Especially today, like with all the rules on being respectful and
Oh yeah.
Guys are really, really hesitant to initiate anything.
Yeah.
But even when I was in high school, like girls were wildly aggressive. Like, hey, let's go hang out. Let's do this. Let's do this.
No kidding.
Oh yeah.
They weren't like that when I was in high school.
Well, like I think that's like
That's because you're from Texas.
no. I think it's just the generational shift of like how culture and society moved. But today, especially, man, like it's usually young men need to be brought up to understand what being respectful looks like.
Yeah.
And how to say, no, that's practice for leadership in the future. Like, no, I don't, I'm just getting to know you right now. Let's not do that.
One thing I was going to bring up too is I think a lot of men don't respect women.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they do get married, they already don't respect them anyway. So it's kind of like, whatever. It's the same. We moved in together before we got married, and it's the same situation. And the way society is, the way society portrays women, it's kind of ingrained in guys' minds when they're young. Like, hey, marry the pinup model or the smoking hot. Like we had Baywatch growing up. Like, that's what a girl's supposed to be, and so you automatically see him as just as a sex object, not as a teammate or a partner. So you're not going to respect that.
Yeah.
And then if you go through like the heartache or a bad breakup or betrayal, someone cheats on you, it just pushes that respect level even further down. So you're like, man, what's the point? Like they're just gonna rip my heart out. So I'm just gonna get payback, man.
Well, that's part of the problem too. Is like, what community are you as a man involved in to where you're meeting people?
Yeah.
So I could say like, there's definite communities of where to find marriageable women.
Well, okay, so
that look a lot different than others.
Where?
Well, like for if you go to what do people do now? The bar or the pool hall or whatever.
The pool hall.
Yeah. People do pool
halls. I don't know. Where's the pool hall?
I don't know. I used to like the pool hall.
Yeah. Pool halls we're getting fights, man. There's always fighting.
But when you go to your local bar to meet women, it's going to be a little bit different.
Watering hole.
The watering hole.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little different than if you go to your church where
okay, but let's bring up church. I'm gonna throw them under the bus again.
Okay, let's do it.
It's irrelevant now because I'm in a very committed, very committed, serious relationship. But a couple years ago, I was trying to get connected in some kind of church capacity with like people my age, and dude, I couldn't find it.
Yeah,
I could not find it because if you were divorced, you were like.
Yeah, we go through the singles with all the 20-year-olds.
Yeah, man, it's like, and we talked about this with Brooks on our episode. Like, there's not a lot of resources out there for people that are maybe older on the dating scene. I don't know about the younger generation, but so I get what you're saying. You're not going to meet probably your future spouse hanging out at Tin Roof, doing Jello shots up on the bar. But man, I don't know. Like, dating is so different nowadays than like when I was in my 20s, but.
I wouldn't even know which I was never good at dating in the first place.
It's different.
I was a workaholic, and so I met Stephanie at the parking lot of my job.
Yeah. Well, it worked out, man. It's just, I think the best advice is.
But that's okay. But even then, so like if you just look at just what community are you in?
I get what you're saying.
And who are you surrounding yourself with?
Right.
Because a lot of people meet because I'm a friend of so and so.
Yeah.
Or so and so's friend is single. Also, can I introduce you to?
Yeah, totally.
If that circle of people is like a trash fire, what friend are they going to introduce you to?
Well, and it also goes like we've talked about. If you're trying to live a clean life and not do drugs or alcohol, who are you hanging out with? If I'm hanging out with people that drink all the time,
it's not going to be.
It's going to be hard to stay sober.
Yeah.
So just like dating, if you're hanging out with a bunch of skanks all the time, I mean, you're not going to be a solid dude. You're not going to be the leader in a marriage if you're hanging out with skanks all the time. I mean, why would you be?
No. And I don't know, man. I've gotten some criticism from friends especially when we were younger, and they're all married with kids now, which is funny because like they were all like, "Dude, you're a moron. We're having the time of our life, and this and that."
Why you get married, kind of?
And here, all these years later, they're like, "Dude, this is hard." Like they're just having their first kid, and they're like, "This is difficult, and I don't know what to do." And she's like this, and I'm like, "I'm like, yeah, dude. Like, you should have had 10 years experience on your belt and was making fun of me, but like."
And the thing too, man, like there's a difference in lust and love, and that lust is never going to fill that void in your heart.
Well, temporal is lust anyway.
Yeah, but it might seem good at first, and you're kind of masking a deeper thing. But when you find real love, dude, lust ain't never going to touch that. And I think too, like, and I want to say this real quick, when you find that true love, it's going to be, or at least for me, it's going to motivate you to be a leader, to sacrifice, to want to work together as a team and not go out looking for that small doses of validation or affirmation from somebody else because you don't feel good about yourself. But when you find that real love, it makes you feel good. And you're like, man, this is awesome. I want to nurture this and I want to grow and evolve. I'm not going to throw this away.
Yeah, I think we have.
At least from my perspective.
No, I completely agree. And I always say this to people, like they're talking about the relationship and want to get married. And I'm like, yeah, it's so good and great. What happens the first time, like she has some stomach infection and is like, throwing it up out of both ends and is like disgusting things and like.
You shouldn't be a marriage counselor.
I'd be a great marriage counselor. I'd prevent a lot.
I'm out. She threw up. I'm out.
But a lot of guys like that.
That's pathetic.
It's pathetic.
That's pathetic, dude.
But even worse, what happens? It's all great. You guys are young. Everybody's pretty still. But like, what happens in a few years? She has a problem. She has cancer. She has this or that, the other.
Yeah.
Then what?
Are you going to
because your sex goes away? Like,
right.
You're not having sex if she's in the hospital.
No.
So lust is out the window.
Right. Totally.
Then what's left?
Yeah.
And you go, ooh.
Yeah.
But that's part of being that leader too, is like saying, no matter what, position, situation, looks, you burned up in a fire and you look like the toxic Avenger when you come home.
The toxic Avenger.
We all love you. It's all right.
They don't know who
Come on, Toxie.
Yeah, they don't know who that is.
Then they should do their homework because that's an incredible program. But that's a question. Like, I think you have to, as sucky as it may be sometimes, if I want to lead a company, I better know every aspect of how that company runs, works, what's bad about it, what are the things in the closet that we really don't want public right now, what can we do to address those things. You better know. And any CEO going into a company is going to systematically run through that company and put together a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And we look at a businessman as a leader doing those things, and then we don't think of ourselves in a leadership position doing that within our own home.
Yeah.
Am I a threat to my own home?
Right.
Am I an opportunity? Am I a weakness? Am I a strength? My kids are all over the board in those 4 categories any given day of the week, but you better have an account of what's happening in your home, and you better lead through that.
Well, and going back to the point about your spouse getting sick or the lust piece is gone. So, marriage is a covenant between God and the husband and wife. I didn't realize that. I hate to say it. I didn't realize that before in my previous 2 until it was too late.
Yeah.
Until it was too late in the last one. And also, God says in Genesis, what's the man's role? Love and protect God's woman. So if your woman gets sick, can't do something, or she's got, maybe stuff in her family where she's got to be pulled away, you love her, man. You got to step up. You got to do it. I mean, it's not just, hey, it's vacation sex all the time. I mean, you're in it for the long haul, regardless of what's going on. If you truly love that
truly love that person.
And that's where I think that separates men from the boys, because brother, you got to step up. You got
Yeah,
to do it.
well, the difference too is boys think love is an emotion.
Yeah.
Men know that love is a choice.
That's good. That's real.
You got to choose.
Say that again for these people.
Boys think love is an emotion. Men know that love is a choice.
That's good. That's real good.
You better wake up every day and choose to love your family.
Yeah.
Because you don't always feel it, and you don't always feel like it. And that's just a fact of life. I love my mother. She can piss me off, but I love my mother.
Yeah.
I love my wife.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
her. Whether I feel that love, whether I just know that I love her. And you better make that distinction, and you better do it often. Because again, like, it's that serious. And you said it, marriage is a contract with God between three people.
Yeah. That's serious, man. You're talking to the guy that blew up two of them. So I blew
Thank
up
Thank God for grace.
100%. But I didn't know to take it like
that seriously.
Yeah, I didn't know to take it. And it's all, and I feel foolish for that because I was raised in the church.
It's always funny to me because people will be like, we listen to the stories of like, ooh, he signed a contract with the devil.
Yeah.
For fame and glory. And we're like, oh, I would never
sell your soul. Yeah.
Like, we sell our soul to God every time we go into a covenant with God. Like, and thank God is God.
Well, I mean, he owns it.
He owns it.
Yeah.
But that contract, when we stand up there and we make an agreement in front of God, friends, and family, or sometimes the judge, depending on your circumstances, justice of the peace, you went into a contract between your wife, yourself, and God.
Yeah.
Till death do you part. Yeah. That's pretty weighty words, man.
It is, man. And another piece to that, there's hierarchy, and it's the wife comes before the kids.
Yeah. And let's talk about that.
I used to do the opposite. I would put the children.
Stephanie and I talk about this all the time, and we're very open with our kids about it. But
yeah,
why don't you break down that hierarchy of the family?
Yeah. So you got God, husband, wife, kids.
Yes.
So the wife is always going to come first. And that doesn't mean you're not going to be there for your kids or take care of them or make sure.
We're talking fine margins here.
Yeah. So basically, that's how you keep a marriage healthy or a relationship healthy is the two of you are a unit, but you've got to put each other above the kids. And it's easy, at least for me it was, and now I'm a single parent for the most part. I'm in a relationship, but I'm still raising my kids kind of on my own. It's easy to put the kids first, especially when they're young, because when they're young, you're constantly you gotta help them get dressed, go to the bathroom, bedtime bath. So it's easy to kind of get lost in the weeds, but you always got to put your spouse above that. And I'll be honest with you, man, I never did that. I always put my kids first in both marriages. I wasn't working on myself, but I knew it was just the right thing to do, take care of the kids. So
it is hard. And I know there's been moments where I've made that failure and I see the results of those failures quickly after.
Yeah.
But I've always I went into having kids thinking I'm going to be my kids' first shitty boss. Their first coach that's hard on them.
Yeah.
Their first teacher, their first this, that, the other. Everything, I'm going to be their first of those. So that a lot of times that's going to mean like I'm the bad guy. I'm the one who said no. I'm the one who wrestled with him on this issue.
Yeah.
And not to say like my kids and I are very close and they're very affectionate.
You got good kids, man.
But it's that hierarchy is why we have good kids, Stephanie and I.
But you've done a good job because just that day you guys came over, man. I was very impressed.
Oh, thank you.
Because you see a lot of kids that just run amok out in the world, man. Your kids are really good. Well, really, really well behaved.
Not in my house. No.
Well, they were over here.
No, but no, it's because of that hierarchy.
Yeah.
Because Stephanie and I agreed at the very beginning, if this is going to work, whatever's going on with the kids is happening with the kids, but you and I have to be first in each other's eyes.
Yeah.
Because we can't do this. Like 4 kids, 4 boys especially, who are constantly putting themselves in every situation to get hurt or maimed.
Yeah.
Like we better be in lockstep.
And that's where it gets kind of challenging in the dating world. You know,
Dude, I can't imagine. I don't
because you're dealing with you know, I mean, I'm 45,
Yeah.
so you know, most people my age are going to have kids more than likely. So then you're
and they raise their kids this way. And,
yeah. So
of course, while you're dating, when you're dating, your priorities are different.
Yeah, they are. And so it's almost opposite in the dating world.
Yeah.
Because you know you're still that parental unit.
Yeah.
Because it's basically just you and your kids.
Yep.
So that's kind of that's an interesting dynamic going into
a
marriage. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It is.
It's a hard dynamic.
It definitely is.
Yeah, I don't envy that, and it's easy for me to talk about like the ideals of marriage, and make it sound like it's all been like rosy. Stephanie and I have had to learn marriage together. She came off of a bad marriage. You know, we met on the heels of her bad marriage to a dude who's exactly the guy we're talking about. That's worthless, lazy, ne'er-do-well, like just not who you would look at and be like, oh, there's a good man to follow.
Yeah.
And here's the funny thing, personality-wise, I got along great with him. You shoot the shit and all that all day long. But there's a big difference in between that, like a buddy and a leader of a home.
Right, totally, man.
And so I came into a relationship and our marriage and had to systematically unpack the baggage that was left behind.
Yeah.
Take all those clothes that we didn't want to Goodwill, burn the luggage, and start over. And that takes time. Like, that's a metaphor, obviously, but like that takes time to unpack all that shit that's been done.
Yeah.
And undo.
Right.
And get rid of the residue of that relationship. And so, like when I say it's a commitment and a servant leadership role, these are like you walk together slowly. Yeah. And then you look at couples that have been married for 60 years and they like, you know, 80 some odd years old at the end of their life, and you're like, man, y'all did it. Like that's an achievement.
So I think guys out there, we're talking to ourselves. I mean, guys, we got to step it up. I mean, you know, you hear all the time, at least I do, oh, the world's just falling apart and the world's well, you know what, guys? Let's step up. Let's do better. You know, let's encourage each other as men, but also love your women, be there for them. Dating, engaged, married, whatever that looks like. I mean, be there for them and respect them, honor them, and sacrifice, man. I mean, and it's easy to be selfish. It's easy to be lazy. I mean, it is. It's comfortable. I mean, but let's guys, we got to make a change. I mean, we have got to step it up. I mean, I think
we do, and it's pervasive throughout our culture. It's pervasive. You see it in the politics of the world today. You see it in our churches. You see it at the store.
Yeah.
There used to be a notion that every home, you know, every man went home, and that was his castle.
Right.
He was king of his castle.
Right.
And I always liked that imagery because, like, okay, well, if I had my own kingdom, what kind of kingdom would it be? And what kind of king would I be? Would I be a fun king, a cool king, you know, one that other people would want to come over and see your kingdom? Would I be a tyrant? Like, nobody thinks that they're going to be the bad guy of a kingdom, right?
It'd be cool.
They're like Kim Jong-un.
You can't see my kingdom. Get out of here.
Like Nero burning down Rome despite himself. Like, but that notion of you are a king and your wife is a queen over your own domicile, like that's your kingdom.
Yeah. To
make with it what you will.
Right.
Sounds cheesy, dude, but if more guys had that mentality of like, okay, well, how would I lead a kingdom?
Take ownership.
Take ownership. Like you own, and not only do you own it, but it was whether you believe in God or not, I truly don't. If you don't, I think you're dumb, but that's on you. I do.
No, I get it. I totally get it.
But even if you don't, that family that you were gifted, that you committed to, is a gift.
It is, man. It is.
And like I get onto my kids every Christmas because I get these gifts, and then like I see them strewn out across the yard, and somebody stepped on them, and it's like, you just like got a gift, a great gift, and you destroyed it.
Yeah.
And that's not a criticism of you. Like I know, like you've changed. Well, you're a different person now.
I was going to bring this up too, and I think guys fall in this category because of my background. it's easy for men to get complacent and think, oh, she's never going to leave me. I'm not going to change for her. I'm set in my ways. And guys, I'm going to tell you, man, there's a lot out there. You mentioned this earlier with the temptation piece. Think about this for a minute. If I'm the typical modern guy, right? I'm not pulling my weight. I'm not sacrificing. I'm a tyrant. You know, my kids don't want to be around me. My spouse doesn't want to be around me. All they got to do is open Instagram, Facebook, throw a selfie up, bam. Here comes a stream of validation right there.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, you're so hot.
Yeah.
You're so cool. And man, I'm telling you guys, when that happens and you're sitting on your ass because you don't want to get better or make a change, it's over, Rocky.
Yeah.
They are going to eat that with us. And guys are going to do it too. It's not just, I'm not picking on the women. Guys are going to do it too. But here's the thing. I waited until the house was, and Sharon used this analogy on that other episode when we were talking about the Enneagram. When the house is on fire and you're ignoring it, and then all of a sudden you're in the front yard with the box of matches going, what just happened? It's too late, guys. I was that guy. I waited until I hit rock bottom to get into the Bible and figure out how to be a husband. By that point, it was over. I mean, it was done. There wasn't a damn thing I could do to fix it. And what happened was I was that guy that didn't want to stop drinking, didn't want to change, didn't want to sacrifice for the spouse. And what happens? There goes the family.
Yeah.
It's gone, and it ain't coming back.
Yeah.
Now I'm a better person because I went through that period. But if you're sitting out there right now and you're kind of like we're describing, you're just lazy, you're mean to your wife and your kids, and you don't give a shit. When all that's just snatched up from you, man, that is a hell you do not want to experience.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you this: waking up on Christmas morning without your kids is a hard reality check, man. It is, and it's weird. I was telling Shelly this the other day. I kind of have these like phantom memories sometimes. And I was watching a couple the other day. I was coming home and it was a husband and a wife pushing a stroller with their dog. And I just had this like flashback, like, damn, like, and it made me think of, 5 years ago was COVID and we used to go for walks. And it's like, man, my kids are already like too old for that. But it was weird to watch that. And then here I am living by myself for the most part at 45. And guys, it's a weird place to be, man. And if you don't get a hold of it now, it's gonna be gone. You're gonna lose it.
Yeah, and I think too, on the opposite end of that spectrum is I would say like don't stop pursuing, even if you think like we're in a good spot,
Yeah.
we're doing the right things together,
Right.
we're doing this. Keep as a man. Jesus knew everything about everybody in the world. Like his disciples that followed him, he knew them inside and out. How many hairs on their head? Like he knew them. He knew what they were thinking.
Yeah.
He still asked questions.
Yeah.
He still explored who they are as a person.
Yeah.
Your spouse, like your wife, don't stop getting to know her and don't stop pursuing.
Don't stop hating her.
Don't stop dating her. Like don't. And it's easy for me, and I fall into this trap every once in a while and have to remind myself too. But like, it's easy to get into routines. And you throw on the sweats, you turn on the tube, and you veg out together.
Yeah.
But like, shake it up, have some fun. Like, even if it's something stupid. Stephanie and I started playing Scrabble on our phones together, which is something we did like when we first met each other, like 12 and a half, whatever years ago. We would just play Scrabble throughout the day together. And she got a new phone and it came with that Scrabble. And so she challenged me to a game. And it's like, oh, it's so much fun.
That's cool, man.
And so, but like, you just keep finding things to dig into.
Here's something too. So there's an app. Too bad we're not sponsored by these guys. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but it's called Paired. And so I don't know if you guys can see that.
Stephanie and I have a similar one.
But basically, you answer questions between you and your wife or your partner, your girlfriend, or whatever, and it's a way to kind of still get to know each other and also how to navigate areas that that might not be so easy to talk about, but it's almost like an icebreaker.
That's cool.
Like social media was one that came up. Like, do you have boundaries of social media? How do you raise your kids? What are your religious views? So it's a way to kind of start the dialogue. So
and dig into deeper conversation.
yeah, like we did it over the Christmas break. We went on like a little weekend trip, and we just kind of made a game out, like a truth or dare type thing. And it's fun. It's a way to kind of, engage and still keep the conversation going. So you're not just sitting there watching a movie and not talking to each other.
Yeah.
Because silence is deadly, man.
Silence is deadly. I think there's a time where it's nice just to kick back and veg. But when that becomes every single day, that's all you're doing.
Yeah, you gotta talk to them, man.
The brain doesn't stop.
Dude, and I don't know about you, but like if Shelly's silent, I'm scared. I'm like, oh man, what's going on? What do I do?
Yeah.
But but I give guys, and the overall takeaway is I don't want to see you guys suffer and go through something when there's a chance to step up and do the right thing. And I know I sound like a hypocrite because I've torpedoed 2 marriages. I was the guy that didn't want to change, but now I feel like, I have a little bit of a platform because I've been there, and I really understand it now. And I'm not married, so I don't have the right. That you're married, so you have more of a say than I do.
No.
But, I think you do, man. I mean, you're an example of what a healthy marriage is. I never had
today. Well, I've made a lot of mistakes, and I will say this though. I'm like, I went through a course where, and Stephanie told me, like, you chose your work and your career over me. I was on a back burner. That was not intentional.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't wake up one like twisting my mustache. How can I sabotage my wife?
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't like that. But it goes back to the point. You just got to be cautious.
Yeah.
And aware. We were right on the brink, man. Like, we were on the brink. And thank God we made it through that. And thank God for guys like you who share a testimony and share a story and warnings.
Yeah.
To say, like, guys, don't go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Because it's not Alice in Wonderland on the other side.
No, man, it's a hardcore reality check, man.
Yeah.
I did a short. We haven't really talked about this on this episode, but on like the co-parenting side of it, like I went to Jacob's basketball game Saturday, and I did a little video on our page about it because God kind of put it on my heart. It's weird, man, when you've had that family dynamic and then it's gone, and now you're walking into a game by yourself, and your ex is there who you don't necessarily have any kind of dialogue with. You talk about getting humble, brother.
Yeah.
And it's a unique experience, and I don't know a lot of women that have had to deal with it like guys I know, where because the mother tends to usually have the kids more.
Yeah.
So the guys kind of are left to the guys that want to be present fathers are kind of left to figure it out. When your kid won't speak to you because they're with the mom that weekend, it's hard, man. And you see me and Jacob. I mean, we're like thick as thieves, dude. So when he's like that, it crushes me.
Yeah.
I mean, he was cool. He was super cool this weekend. I actually sat behind him on the bleacher, so when they were off the court, he was like talking to me. But like the game before that, he wouldn't even acknowledge me. I went out on the court and tried to say hi to him, and he wouldn't even talk to me.
Oh.
Yeah, dude, it like rips your soul apart, dude, because that's like unconditional love.
Yeah.
And I tell him, buddy, there's nothing you can ever do that make me stop loving you. I will always love you no matter what. And of course, he's young, so he's trying to pick things like, oh, if I did this. But so guys, if you're out there, I don't want you to have to go through that. If there's a way to step up into that role that God has made for all of us, man. Even the single guys that are young, that are learning, that are dating, like to your point, don't take it for granted, man. Like own it. Like get some foundational knowledge under your belt, or learn from someone older than you, or just be a good dude.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story for me, and I tell people this in a business setting all the time, in our work, especially leading other chefs. Chefs are like morons and stupid and nuts, and I am one, so I can say that. But like, whenever we're doing something with a job, I always say, can we make it look like we meant to do it?
Yeah.
Like, can we do this like we gave a shit?
Right.
So whether you're that young person getting into relationships, or you're thinking about marriage, or you're the the person that's in a marriage already, like, can you just stop for a second, step back from it, look at it, and make it look like you gave a shit?
Yeah.
And if you look at it and it goes, yeah, this looks all really intentional, actually, perfect for me.
Right.
Then I challenge you to ask the other person, if you took a step back and looked in, honey, is this what you would idealize it as?
Yeah.
And if they say yes, good.
Yeah.
If they say, yeah, sure. You might want to dig into that question a little bit more.
I think too, I thought of this today, like the way that I prepped to go through SEAL training, that I was that serious about it. I kind of look at it now like I'm all in. If marriage is on the horizon for me, I mean this, I'm going to say this on here. I mean, to have that title again, and it is just a piece of paper in theory, I will take that covenant with God more serious than anything. I will take that as serious as getting baptized. Like, okay, God, I'm in this role now, and I'm not going to let you down this time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do everything I can to be the best leader, protector, provider. And I don't mean provider in the sense that I'm going to make more money than the other person, but just I'm going to carry my weight.
Yeah.
Whether it's, taking the trash out without being asked, or cleaning up something, or whatever, taking the truck to get gas so they don't have to do it. Just small stuff.
Yeah.
Just small stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That was good stuff, man.
That was, man. That was heavy, and I think it's good to get that out there. So y'all angry at us, hit us in the comments, man. I want to see them. So we're trying to ruffle some feathers.
Yeah, I don't read comments.
Yeah, I do. All right, until next time. Peace out. That was good, man. Very nice.